All right, so reviewing the machlokas from yesterday, just to make sure it's clear, because I know there's some questions. Let's just review what we said, and then I'll take questions, and we'll see if we can develop it a little more. Because our objective, by the way, to see if this works, to see if our approach works, we're going to have to plug it into Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. That's the most confusing part about this whole area. To take this, whatever this is, and then apply it back to all those possibilities in the Gemara and Tesvav. Okay? If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it yet. Yes. So as far as like this, okay. Step one was to categorize what the issue here is. Okay, so we wanted to say yesterday was that remember from the Gemara and Chesed Beis, what's the problem with building a sukkah, so to speak, around your house? In other words, like the case of the Pnimis, right? What was the problem with that? Right? In other words, you can't tell me there's a problem with the walls. You can't tell me there's a problem with the schach. Everything's kosher, right? There's no problem with the chesa. It's l'shem sale. All those things are there. But what's lacking in that sukkah? What did we say yesterday? What's lacking in that sukkah? Remember the potter in the inner sukkah? What's lacking in it? Arinus. Right, Arinus versus Dira versus Kvias. Right? It's how he lives in the structure determines what kind of structure it is. Okay? So that's a profound idea. You have to appreciate the uniqueness of sukkah, because it's one thing to say that there's an element that exists in the object itself. It's another thing to say that a certain nihug, the way I live, will tell me what kind of structure I'm living in. So even though I live in a hut, right, you would think therefore it could be a sukkah, but no, it's considered like your bias. So the main issue is kvias versus arai. Okay, that's step one. Okay, next step is Rav Meir. All right, what's saying? Is that point clear? Right, is that's really the main concept of Taaseh and HeAsui. Taaseh and HeAsui, it's not a din it's true we talked about the chefsa, the shem schach, binyan, but ultimately the whole point of Taaseh and HeAsui is that the idea of Taaseh is to do what? Is to make for yourself a diras araya. That's the whole point. Taaseh, HeAsui has what character attached to it? Think about it. HeAsui means it's already been keva, exactly. It's like it's already been made. It has the element of kviyas attached to it. So Taaseh and HeAsui is really the halachic expression, one of the halachic expressions of keva versus arai. Of course, the other one is how you live in the sukkah versus your house. Okay. Okay. Then that leads to the next step. So now Rav Meir, the machlokas Rav Meir and Rav Yehuda. Right. So what is so? It's really no one disagrees with the idea that if I go ahead and live in my hut, that it can't be used as a sukkah. Everyone agrees with that, because now that makom's become a makom of diras kavua, diras keva, right? Yeah. The question is, with that segue, the question is, what's the gzera? Okay, what's bothering Rav Meir? Okay, that's the next question. Why does Rav Meir insist chazal made at the kind here? Rav Yehuda, there's really nothing to define Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda's problem with Rav Meir is self-evident, because Rav Meir's chiddush is something Rav Yehuda won't take that step. You know what I mean? The point they're arguing on is did Chazal, were they able to make such a gzera? But what was the gzera? Okay. It's not like well, why not? So the final, in order to actually answer the whole machlokas, there's one more thing we're going to have to. In order to answer what it is, we're going to have to answer one more thing, which I don't know if we'll get to today. How would we answer that they're from this to this? Because there's one other fact that not a missing fact. There's one other fact we know about. What do they both agree about?
Two by fours are normative?
No. What case do they say is kosher?
Less than 4.
Exactly. They both agree it's less than 4. Right? So I think if we understand why Rav Meir holds that's okay, we can then understand a little bit better what Rav Yehuda's position is. Okay? But what's Rav Meir's position?
Everything's okay.
What?
No, that's Rav Yehuda.
Yeah.
What's Rav Meir's position? What does Rav Meir hold?
So 4 is bad.
What?
Succah, you can't use this.
Right. So again, what we said yesterday was that basically Rav Meir's objective is to remove any. Rav Meir doesn't want any feature of bias. When I say bias, I mean a diras kavua. He doesn't want any feature of keva expressed in the sukkah. He wants a sukkah to be devoid of kvias or biasness. Okay. So therefore, what does he say? He says since the bias normally comes from how you live in the place and not the materials. Because again, what was the original halacha? The original halacha is how I live determines the structure, not what the structure is made of. Correct?
Yeah.
Right? Is that clear? How I live is what determines the halachic definition of the structure, not the materials. But what does Rameir want to do?
Important, though, right?
What?
Materials are also important.
But not insofar as keva versus arai.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
The reason why I have to use wood and schach has nothing to do with arai.
Right.
Because they used wood to build the roofs in general. Right? It's not a din in arai. Right?
Yep.
So what does Rameir want? He wants halacha in the very chefsa itself that will demonstrate this issue. Okay? So, what does he say? So he says like this, and this is the last step. He says, normally a person doesn't relate to a makom. How does a person... There's one thing about, and this is, if you want to get a little closer, what the issue is, what the point of contention is, get a little closer. So, I wanted to say this yesterday, but you guys had, we had to end the share in this minute. So the question is like this. The question is like this. Okay, normally there's how halacha comes along, okay, and defines how you live. Okay, what does halacha say? What does the halachic system say about how you live?
In terms of what?
Because the halachic system comes along and says,
You belong to me.
no, I'm saying in terms of of sukkah versus bias. What does halacha say? How you live, right, determines whether or not it's a bias or sukkah. How you live in the structure. Halacha says how you live in it will determine keva versus arai.
Right.
Okay? What's Rameir saying though? Rameir is saying there's another feature here. Because how
you relate to.
That's right. How you relate to it. Now, how do you relate to a place that you live in? If it's kvias versus arai, how do you relate to
Don't
it?
you just said you made the club between normative and you?
No, halachic normative. No.
Did you just restate?
Halacha comes along and says that if you go ahead and live in a place normally, the structure itself becomes defined as a makom keva, right? A diras keva,
Regardless of material.
Regardless of material,
But that's
right?
what you said yesterday.
Right, okay, but now Rameir. Now I'm going to just clarify Rameir a little bit. Rameir is saying no. Rameir is saying there's another thing to take into account. There's another thing Chazal take into account. What do? They say it's not just halacha determining what your makom is, but we also take into account how you and I would relate to the makom. Now, how do you look at something being a house versus a sukkah? So halacha comes along and says how you live in the structure determines what the nature of the structure is.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what it's made out of, right? But one second. But you would certainly say that you relate right? Being normative man would certainly say that he relates to a place built with 2x4s as a roof versus, let's say, a place that has. Give me an example of a weak roof, like I don't know, like straw, right? You would relate to it differently. You would say one's a house and one's a sukkah, or one's a hut, right? Halacha would say it doesn't matter. Halacha would say irrelevant. How you live in it will determine the structure. The question is, how do you relate to it?
How you
Roof is indicative of the structure.
Well,
Again, I'll give you another example. Let me give you the perfect nafkamina. Okay, the perfect nafkamina is a tent. Forget the halachic. Forget that it can't be a sukkah for other reasons. How do you look at a tent versus a house? Okay, so there's two ways you can look at it.
Sturdy, not sturdy.
Well, one way is you could say, but let's say I live in a tent all year round, right? But I live in a house for one day. So halacha would say the tent. I understand the tent, the triangle. I understand the issue. But I'm saying halacha would say the tent is your diras keva and can't ever be a sukkah, but your house can be because you only live in there a day. But what does the guy say? How do you look at it?
Well, there's another way in which they can relate to it.
Right.
Okay, right. There's another way a person relates to it. He says, no, it's not just. Okay, that's a better way to put it. You're right. It's not just how I relate. It's not just how I live in it that determines the structure, but it's also what it's comprised of. So if you look at a tent is what? Canvas, right?
There's a certain sense of security.
But it does. How you relate to it doesn't. Got to be careful. Halacha doesn't care.
How you relate to it.
Right. Halacha doesn't care how you relate to it. Right. Halacha's not saying because I relate to it in a certain way that defines the structure. It's irrelevant. You got to appreciate the nuance. Halacha's not saying the fact that I relate to the materials in a certain way that defines the structure. It's not. That's why it's gzeira. Halacha says how you live in it determines what the structure is. But Rameir wants to say we should take into account as well how a person relates to it. Now, what's going to happen? Think about it. The raya is what tikra is called. Tikra is what? Beams are used for the roof beams. What's a roof beam? What is a roof beam? A roof beam is I look at that and I see house. I see in the very thing itself. I don't just see a piece of wood. I see house material, right? And therefore I relate to it as a makom of diras keva. You understand? But it doesn't mean that the thing itself is a problem, because that's what halacha cares about. Halacha says how you live in it determines the structure. There's nothing wrong with the wood. It's wood. It's chafsa good and shem schach good. But what is lacking is, at least what the gzera is. The gzera is that we don't want any, according to our mayor, we don't want any reality of, again, in his framework, in the subjective man framework, of bias in the sukkah whatsoever. So that's the reason why you can't use Tikra. What is, now go back now to, now you can start going back to the Gemara and Tesvav, okay? Because before you answer lesson 4, go back to Gemara and Tesvav, okay? If you hold Xeris Tikra,
So the pestle.
now we're talking. So the question is, the pestle. How does the pestle solve the problem? The question you have to ask is, how does pestle work? Well, it should follow from the svara. Okay. One question you have to answer is, why does pestle work? And then you have to answer, what doesn't work?
Right, it's lifting up.
Right.
Mefaf.
Mefafkek does not work. In other words, mefafkek doesn't work, but notal achas in time does work. So why should that be the case? Okay? Now you have to answer.
If you live in the Sarim, you're still in the Sarim.
Oh, okay,
You
good.
still see them.
Which proves what? Which proves
That's how you
what?
live to them.
What? Oh, and it's not a din in what?
The actual material.
Exactly. What he said is bullseye, okay?
Yeah,
Perfect. Say it again, say it again, say it again.
Say it
Yeah,
again.
if
Say it again.
it's- The fact that lifting up and putting back down proves that it's only a matter of how you relate to the object, not the actual material of the object itself.
Lifting what up?
The Nazar, the planks, the roof beam.
In other words, if it was really a problem with the chefza, it's not a problem with the chefza, because
Let's do a recap on the original now. You know what I'm saying?
no,
Very simple,
just think about it. If it's a problem with the
No, I heard
chefza,
the idea. It 100% makes sense. But
just to review, so Beis Shammai, the original way of learning Beis Shammai says that when I use nisarim, when I use the roof beams, so he says mifafkek, which means
Nisarim being the four
roof, four tefachim beams,
Must
right?
be four tefachim.
Tikra. When I use tikra, so Beis Shammai says this would not do anything if I lift them up and put them back down again. That's worthless.
Nane is nothing.
But he calls it mifafkek, but it's the same thing.
Sorry.
But what?
Cake.
Yeah, mifafkek. Mem pei kuf. Okay.
Mifak fake.
Yeah.
So not
Mifak
mifak
fake.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. But what would work, right? If I take one of the beams out and replace it with a kosher beam or a pestle, some other something that can be
every
used.
other beam replacement.
Well, yeah, you could. Yeah, it seems that's the way it learns out.
It has to be every other.
No, that's not makiv. So the question now is, so again, like we said before.
Hill says-
So why? So don't worry about Beis Hillel yet. Beis Shammai holds mifafkek does not work, right?
Yeah.
And Beis Shammai holds mifafkek does not work, but notel does work. Okay. So the question is,
It's called no-till.
yeah, I mean you're picking one up. Why does mifafkek not work, right? And why does notel work? Okay, so Yaakov, so Yaakov made the right step, which is that it clearly shows you it can't be a problem with the chefsa, because if it was a problem with the chefsa, then this, right? Then you wouldn't even consider this to be an option, right? Because how would that be? If there's something wrong with the chefsa, I gotta get rid of it, right?
Wait. According to Beis Shammai, Nane is nothing.
More than that, right? More than
Nane
that.
does not work.
And that does not work.
So therefore it's opposite.
No.
It is problem with Chefsa.
No.
It's only no-till works.
Why? No, and none of that. Notel also proves it can't be a problem with the chefsa.
No,
Because if there's a problem with the chefsa, removing one and replacing it with something else, what about the other beams?
Right.
You know what I mean? Let's say I have 10.
Chefsa's the
The Gemara at Havamina about Beis Shammai. That what was the Gemara's Havamina about Beis Shammai? Remember the original Havamina?
Yeah, he held
Mifafkek, both, right?
Yeah.
Meaning what?
both pestle and mefaf.
Right. So why would you think that's the case?
From what?
In other words, why would you say that Mifafkek would do something?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? You know what? I'm not presenting well. Let's go the other way. Let's define what Natila does. What does taking off a beam and replacing it with a pestle do?
When you say
Make
both, you mean
something
or both?
Both. He requires both mifafkek and.
So therefore, no-till by... I don't know if you answered the question right away then. Therefore, the question should be, what does no-till not do that requires mafak fake to complement in order to do the action?
We'll answer that in a second. Let's just first focus on no
Changing the
toe.
structure
Well, how are you changing the structure?
physically.
But the thing is, the structure, you still have roof beams, right?
But you have one
The
less.
thickness.
What?
You have to go my way. You have to go my way.
I agree, but let's say it a little nicer. Dylan's right. Dylan, say what you said again.
I said, just said the roof is one entity. The roof is the chefsa.
Right. Okay. Good. But no, the roof's not a chefsa. So you mean an abstract chefsa?
Of course.
Right. You don't mean.
I mean,
No, you don't mean as a
there is air in
no. You
between.
don't. No, you don't mean as a problem of like. Okay, let's just get our terms straight. Okay.
Fine. Shade
Normally.
roof.
Okay, that's more like it. Shame roof. No, is that there's no chesed roof.
That goes in the Chetza land.
No, I'll prove, no, because if that were the case, then you couldn't use any roof beams. But you can use roof beams. You could use roof beams. Let's say I have 4 roof beams, right? What do I have to do? Take one out and put a vessel in. So I still have roof beams up there.
But
What have I destroyed though?
The very fact that you have to go in via and use a mechanism of Chetza in order to mess with it shows you that it's not entirely removed from Chetza. That's what I said. It's like a shame roof that's in Chetza land. Because you still need to.
So what have I done? When I go ahead and put the pestle in, what have I done? You said it before. I've destroyed what?
It's no longer a roof beam roof.
Right. Meaning it's but how? When you look at it. Like again, remember, according to Meir, don't forget what we said. There's a proof of what we're saying before. It's in your framework, how you relate to it.
Yes.
So when I look up, what do I see?
You still see roof beams. A whole lot.
I see a lot of roof beams. What don't I see?
A roof beam roof.
I don't see a roof beam roof, right? Meaning that.
You don't see a roof.
Meaning that what makes a person now? Let's just. I'm sorry for using the word roof multiple times, but what makes a person look at a roof in a certain way? It has to be, and this is why no-till works. This is his chiddush, homogeneous. Because when I see 5, 6, 7 roof beams, so I see a roof. The idea of roof emerges from
uniformity.
Exactly. So he's saying by breaking the uniformity, it's no longer homogeneous. So now, even though he has the roof beam material, he won't relate to it as a roof beam roof. A roof beam roof. In other words, you've broken I can't say it other way other than saying you've broken the shame roof. It's no longer a roof in your framework, and meaning keva. That's why that works. It's an ingenious idea that Rameir is proposing. He's saying that
it's true.
What? So what's the issue according to Rameir? Rameir is going to say the reason why Natila works is because, like you said, you're destroying the roof, and that's expressed through it not being homogeneous. All right.
Yes.
So now, with that idea, now let's make one more step. Okay. Why would you think then that mefavke would be at least one part of the solution? So you have to be in Havmi in the land a little bit here. In other words, the question is that the Gemara originally wanted to say that maybe you'll think that according to Beis Shammai that I need 2 things to do. I got to do this and then Natila. So why? Why would you think that?
Natila?
Yeah, I gotta first do this and then pick up and then replace one with a pestle. One we've already said destroys the roof. But what would this do?
Reestablish it as a schaf.
What do you mean?
Meaning once he does the
What goes first?
Once he puts the kosher schaf on top.
The fakfe goes
gets rid
first.
of like one beam.
Yeah.
It allows.
How could you construct?
It breaks the bond.
Wrong word to
It
use. But
breaks
how
the
can you
bond.
construct? What breaks?
It doesn't. But no cell is one that actualizes it.
No tell.
Yeah, you have to.
Say it again. No. Tamir, say it again.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
You have to
Basically,
break.
What you guys are saying is that by doing this, I'm basically breaking the kviyas dira.
But that's
Whereas I'm
what
doing an
it's also
action.
doing. Then what it's also doing.
But see, now let's go. No, 1 second. Now let's go back to what I was positing before, and you'll see why this isn't the case. Okay. The fact that if you held, just listen. If you held the real problem here all along was really Taaseh Velo and HeAsui, so then what you could say is like this: you would say that what's Xeris Tikra? Xeris Tikra is built off of that idea. So first what I have to do is do this, right? To destroy HeAsui, and then I got to do no-tell to destroy the idea of roof. All right. But the fact that Beis Shammai, what does Beis Shammai hold? He holds all I have to do is no-tell. So what's that telling you? Is Xeris Tikra according to Beis Shammai? Is Xeris Tikra related? And in Rav's version of right, is Xeris Tikra related to Taaseh and HeAsui? No. Right. So therefore, no, it's not, because when I do no-tell, no-tell is nothing. No-tell is not a solution of Taaseh and HeAsui. No-tell is a solution of what? Of Xeris Tikra. Right. So in other words, don't worry so much if you don't get this point clearly, but the point he's trying to say is like this. In other words, the Gemara's conclusion is that according to Beis Shammai, Xeris Tikra is its own unique Xera. Okay, and its solution, and it has nothing to do with Taaseh and HeAsui. It's still being a din in that I can't have any idea Kviyas attached to my house, to my sukkah. If you go back to the Gemara and Yodam and Av, all this is according to Rav. What does Shmuel say? Shmuel Amar, it's in the Gemara, it's 1, 2, 3 lines from the Gemara. Ushmuel Amar b'she'ein behen arba machlokas. Okay, so now he reverses it. He says, "What's the machlokas between Rav Meir and Rav Yehuda?"
It's above.
When it's what? When it doesn't have 4. It doesn't matter if it's above or not. When it doesn't have 4, and they're arguing about when it doesn't have 4, right? Aval yesh behen arba divrei kol psula.
Right.
Okay, But when if they have 4, everyone agrees that's puzzle. So what is Shmuel? According to Shmuel, everyone agrees that what?
Above 4 is puzzle.
Not above 4.
4 and above.
Just say 4. Don't worry about that. 4 is puzzle. Why?
Season.
Because those are the beams that are used.
And therefore they both agree that there's Xeros Tikra. Right? Rameir.
They said
What?
and there for what?
It says evidence-
What and there for what? What and there for what?
Shmuel says what? Shmuel says that if they're less than 4 is a machlokas.
What?
If there's
No, that's it. It's absolute.
Implying that.
Shmuel Amar b'she'im mehen arba. Sorry, if there aren't 4, forget. I'm using less to make it easier. Let's say they're not 4 tefachim
Right.
wide. They're 3, or
Implying
5, whatever it
It
is.
is 4.
Right?
There is not.
No, I'm saying. So machlokas is about that. Okay, but everyone agrees that if I use 4 with roof beams, everyone agrees it's puzzle. Therefore, at this point in time, it would sound like. What does it sound like on the surface?
Positions are-
Well, that's yes. Be a little more advanced than that. Yeah, you're right. The position are first. More than that. Who holds Xeris Tikra then?
Both.
Well, sort of. It sounds like they both agree when it comes to roof beams, you can't use it because Xeris Tikra, right? Yeah. But then when it comes to whether or not you can use less than 4, so Rameir is going to hold what? I can't even use less than 4. Xeris Tikra includes both 4 and less.
Yeah.
Whereas Rabbi Yehuda, that's Shmuel's version.
Yeah, see, we're gonna have to wait on the recap.
Okay.